Hi everybody, Terry Ryder from hotspotting.com.au bringing you my regular weekly feature at this time, Hotspot of the Week. And tonight I want to talk about Hobart and Tasmania because property markets in Tasmania, including Hobart, currently lead the nation. Homes sell faster there than anywhere else in Australia, and right now Hobart has the strongest price growth anywhere in capital city Australia, and regional Tasmania is also a national leader on price growth. And it's the strength of prices that's the outstanding feature about Tasmanian markets at the moment. Virtually every location across the state in the last 12 months has recorded price growth above 5%, and most have delivered better than 10%. We've just done a location by location survey of Tasmanian markets as we do every quarter. We've just completed the work on Hobart and Tasmania, and what we've found is that it's pretty much impossible to find a market anywhere in Tasmania where the median price has dropped in any meaningful way in the last 12 months. And in that regard, I think that Hobart and Tasmania is unique across Australia. There's certainly other markets where prices are going strongly, but it's very, very rare to go through an entire state's market and not find anywhere where prices are down in any meaningful way. So in the course of conducting our state-by-state research into sales activity and prices for every location, every town, every suburb, we record what's happening with median prices in the last 12 months in each location. We make a list of those that have increased by 5% or more, ones that have increased between 1% and 5%, minor growth, and also those places where median prices have dropped more than 5%, so the ones where prices are dropping in a meaningful way. And I should say that we disregard any location that's got fewer than 30 annual sales, because we think the sales sample in that case is too small to provide accurate, meaningful, reliable median price data. Okay, so in Hobart, we can't find any suburbs with falling prices at the moment, and we can't find any with just minor growth. There's nowhere growing merely 2 or 3%. They've all increased by at least 5% in the last 12 months, and that's, I think, a unique situation amongst the major markets of Australia right now. And not only that, but 80% of the suburbs of Hobart are up at least 10%. A key feature is also that not only are they up in annual terms, but in most cases they've shown meaningful rises in the latest quarter, which means prices are still rising in Hobart. Now, again, this suburb by suburb examination that we do calls into question the generalised data being published in media about locations. CoreLogic figures for Hobart, so their house prices are up about 7%. That can't be right if 80% of the suburbs of Hobart are up by 10% or more, including some that are up more than 20%. Something's wrong on the algorithm, guys. I think it's the same with Melbourne. Last time we did suburb by suburb examination of price trends in Melbourne, we couldn't find any justification for the claim by CoreLogic that Melbourne prices overall are down 10%, because if they were, we'd expect to find a lot of suburbs with prices down 10% or more. But it's very hard to find them. There are some, particularly at the top end of the market, but in the middle market, there's very few that's shown any meaningful decline in prices, and in the outer ring areas, prices are still rising. So I don't know how they come up with the figures that they do. I think they're highly suspect. And certainly the case with Hobart, because Hobart overall is growing more than 10% because 80% of the suburbs in Hobart are growing by at least 10%. And it's CoreLogic figures that I'm using during the suburb by suburb, town by town analysis. Now, the standout markets in Hobart have grown more than 20% with their median prices in the last 12 months, and they include suburbs like Bellerive up 21%, Carlton 22%, Gage Books up 22%, Howrah 23%, Moona 20%, Risdon Vale 26%, Warrane 21%. Most of these are at the affordable end of the market, or the more affordable end of the market by national standards. Everywhere in Hobart's affordable, certainly by Sydney and Melbourne standards. But these are at the cheaper end. Most of those suburbs, not all of them, are at the cheaper end of the market. Now, some of the unit markets where there's been a large number of unit sales, their median prices are up even more than that, Bellerive unit market's up 29%, and so is the West Moona unit market. But the leading markets in Hobart are Clarendon Valley houses, up 32%, and Lindisfarne units, also up 32%. So some really major growth happening in this market. I mean, Hobart people must shake their heads in disbelief and wonderment when they see the national headlines about, you know, prices falling everywhere across Australia. Apparently, Tasmania isn't part of Australia, because there's not only is there no evidence of a price decline anywhere in Hobart, but most suburbs are up very strongly, including the ones I've just given you that are up 20%, and a couple are up more than 30%. Now, having said all that, when we look at sales volumes, it's clear that the Hobart market has probably passed its peak in terms of buyer demand. Buyer demand is still strong. There's still a significant number of suburbs with rising demand, but not as many as there were, say, 12 months ago. So that was back then when we saw the peak in the Hobart market in terms of demand, but the decline has been very minor and very gradual, so the market's still strong and prices continue to be strong. It's just that growth markets in terms of sales activity are outnumbered now by plateau markets. There's a big emphasis on affordability. To give you an example of what I mean, the suburb of Rokeby, which is on the opposite side of the River Derwent from the Hobart CBD over on the eastern side, and the local government area of Clarence. Rokeby's a very affordable suburb. Sales volumes have been rising significantly quarter by quarter there, and in the last 12 months its median price has risen 12% to 200, still below 300,000. It's 285,000, so a very affordable suburb. Another one also on that side of the River Derwent, the suburb of Brightwater, which is in the Brighton local government, just on the northern fringe of Hobart. Sales activity has also risen a lot there in the last, say, 18 months, and in the last 12 months the median price has risen 15% in response to that rise in demand. That's why we do this town by town, suburb by suburb charting of sales activity. We're looking for rising demand because, you know, then all other things being equal, it's going to lead to price growth, and that's what we've seen in the suburb, the very affordable suburb of Brightwater. Despite prices rising 15% in the last 12 months, the median price is still just 235,000. So what's driving the Hobart market, apart from a much stronger state economy than we've seen in the past? It ranks number 4 out of the 8 states and territories according to the ComSec State of the State report, and has done for the last couple of years. So strong underpinning of the state economy, but affordability is the thing. There's a lot of buyers, both home buyers and investors, targeting Tasmania from outside of Tasmania, particularly people from Melbourne, and it's the affordability thing that's driving it. Now, regional Tasmania, we've talked so far about Hobart. It's a little bit further back in the cycle in Hobart, so it's got perhaps a little bit further to run in terms of this cycle, where there are still significant numbers of suburbs with rising demand in, say, Launceston, the number 2 city in Tasmania, and neighbouring local government areas like West Tamar and the Meander Valley. So suburbs like Kings Meadow, Norwood, Prospect, South Launceston, Waverley, Hadspen, Riverside, they've all got rising demand according to our research. And as a consequence, there are many suburbs in this precinct where annual price growth is in double digits. Some of the places I've just mentioned included in those. We've got a couple of the unit markets in that area. Units in the suburb of Newnham are up 27%, but the median price is still just 220,000. And for the suburb of Riverside, the median unit price is up 27% also, to 325,000. So again, we're seeing some unit market as well as housing markets in different parts of Tasmania with very strong growth in their median prices. Now, the thing about Launceston and the near neighbours is that most of the suburbs have median prices below 300,000, and there are others in the sort of low to mid 300,000. So it's a very, very affordable market by national standards, and it's attracting a lot of buyer interest from outside of the state. But having said all that, the number 1 location in Tasmania for growth in the last 12 months, according to these figures, is the town of Richmond, which is about 25 kilometres north east of Hobart, and its median house price has risen 44% in the last 12 months. I remember visiting Richmond on a previous visit to Tasmania. It's a very charming, historic sort of a town, a lovely historic fabric to it. So it doesn't surprise me it's been targeted by buyers, probably lifestyle buyers. The sales sample is smallish, 34 sales in the past year. It's we disregard any location with fewer than 30, so it just makes the cut. So maybe the small sales sample has distorted the median price a little bit perhaps, but nevertheless, median house price for Richmond, town just outside of Hobart, is up 44%. But indicative of a property market in Hobart and Tasmania, which is still very, very strong, with pretty much everywhere experiencing rising prices, none that we can find with significant declines in prices, and that makes it a unique market around Australia right now. So all the commentary by CoreLogic and others about prices being down everywhere in Australia, well, they've obviously forgotten about Hobart and Tasmania, but we haven't. And we think it's important for you, the real estate consumers of Australia, to be aware that there are markets like this where real estate's affordable for home buyers and investors, and prices are still rising strongly. That's it for now. Terry Ryder from hotspotting.com.au signing off. We'll do it again soon.